And I recommend that you also take a moment to learn how to just sit in your space and do analog things. Welcome back to the Humaning Well podcast. I am so grateful to have you here listening to me this week. So listen, I went to Washington, D.C. and visited with some friends. And one of my friends, it's actually a couple. I hung up with the wife of the couple. And she was telling me that her and her husband listened to the podcast. And she was like, yeah, we ask each other every day, like, are you humaning well today? How are you humaning well today? And I was like, I love that. I actually really like that a lot. But then she went on to talk about that sometimes they have days where they're like, yeah, I'm not humaning well today. And I've even had members of my own team say that to me, like, yeah, I'm not humaning well today, which I know we all have those days, where we really just are not doing well. We're not feeling like ourselves. We're not being good to ourselves. We're not growing in the ways we want to. We feel like we're behind on everything. And so you're just like, I'm not humaning well. Like, I feel like I'm everywhere. That happens. But that conversation with her inspired me to create this episode to offer some ways that you could human well that maybe you haven't thought about. Like, so you have some like tools in your toolkit so that you can borrow these activities maybe on days when you find that you are not humaning well. Now, some of these require some time. I try to keep them so that they don't require too much money, but just not your typical run-of-the-mill things that you might reach for, but some things that may help you to human well. All right. So if you've been listening to the podcast for the whole time, you know that Humaning Well has 4 pillars. Those 4 pillars are health, wealth, relationships, and growth. And this isn't about being perfect in any one area because most of us know that perfection does not exist. This is really about making sure that we attend to each of those areas because we need all of them for us to really have an experience of wellness. I need my health, right? I need to have enough money to be able to function. I need to have really good connective relationships. I need to feel like I have an opportunity to grow because if any of those is really way, way out of whack, it will consume your world. You can't think about anything else if your money isn't right, if you don't have your time. You can't think about anything else if your health is, really, really taking a toll on you, okay? And so the goal here is not balance, because that's a myth. It is, in fact, to make sure that we are attending to the areas that we know make us show up as better humans. So I'm going to share with you 5-ish tactics, okay, that you can use to human better. And I'm going to make sure that I tell you what pillar they touch, right? Because some touch more than one pillar. I think actually all of the ones that I wrote down. Okay. So number 1, you want to always be thinking about the ways you can restore that mind-body connection. Okay. And one of the ways that I think is really great for adults to do it that we don't always think about is play. Now, specifically, play with no screens. So this isn't an opportunity to go play video games. Okay. Like some screen-free play. Because that mind-body connection is what really builds your resilience and helps you to be able to show up and have the capacity to engage with, gestures vaguely, all of the things that are happening in the world, right? And so for me, when I think about play without a screen, that includes things like, doing calligraphy. Calligraphy is pretty cheap. Get you some paper, get, a nice dip pen. You can get some ink, stencils you can download and print off from online. Like, you don't have to spend a lot of money to do that, but it's super relaxing, but also it requires like some focus, right? And there's also some neurological data around writing, and calligraphy is writing, that's really yummy for your brain, right? So doing calligraphy is one way you can play. Building Legos is one of my favorite ways to play, right? Like, I am a Lego fanatic. If I'm stressed, if I'm frustrated, if I had a rough day, I am like, let me make sure I carve in some Lego time, because it just makes me feel better. Like, I get something out of like watching this thing like come together, and especially the ones where they have like some kind of mechanical element, like the typewriter that I completed was just, it was so yummy. Okay. So building Legos, it doesn't have to be Lego brand. It could be another brand, but building with your hands, right? Again, that mind-body connection. Another thing that you can do is go to whatever store you like to buy greeting cards from and pick up a handful of, cards like anniversary, birthday, sympathy, whatever. And just spend like an hour just filling out greeting cards for people you care about. You can get like just because cards, right? Fill those out, address them, take your time and write really thoughtful notes. Again, that act of writing does something really yummy for you, but also, you get to like connect with people, right? Because you're sending them something that they're going to like open up and go, oh my gosh, this was so thoughtful. I also like to put together bouquets. I will take my tail right up to, the local Trader Joe's and collect, some individual buds and then put together something really nice, spend an hour or so doing that. Trying out a new recipe if you are a person who does at least enjoy cooking. I know some people don't love to cook. I'm not a person who loves to cook, but if I ate something and it was delicious, like I'm like, I think I can make that. So I think I enjoy the challenge of like making something that I'm going to love. So maybe trying a new recipe could be the way that you play. You could also join a friend for a workout class. That's something I did this morning. I got up at 5 a.m., which I cannot believe I'm saying that out loud, but I did. I got up at 5 o'clock this morning and I joined a friend for a workout class at a studio that she had just gone to and was like, hey, I think you'll like this. And I was like, you know what? I get to move my body. I get to get connected. Let's do it. So I went. These are things that you can do on your own or with friends. Like you can, go and just get greeting cards by yourself. You could just build Legos by yourself. You can do calligraphy by yourself, but you can also make it a group activity. You can do it with someone you care about, invite someone over, maybe you do this over coffee or cocktails or juice or whatever your thing is, and you get a little bit of friend time. And these are not super expensive ideas unless you want them to be. Like if you want to spend $400 on flowers, sure, but you don't have to do that. And secretly, very often the cheaper the flower, the longer it will last. So, keep that in mind. They're still beautiful, right? But you get to use your hands and your brain. So you get that good mind body stuff going on to help build your resilience and help fortify your well-being. And if you do them alone, you're tapping that health pillar, right? So you get the relationships pillar if you bring a friend in, but if you do it by yourself, you're still tapping the health pillar, okay? So because you're getting that mind body connection going, but you get the relationships piece if you invite someone to come and join over, which, it's because you're strengthening your connection over an activity, which is great, right? It also fortifies the connection in the sense that when people do shared activities, it gives them something to talk about. Oh, remember when we put those bouquets together last April, right? So, think about that. Okay, number 2. This one isn't super fun, but it is a good way to human well. Build a budget for the year. Yes, the whole year. This obviously touches our wealth pillar, but data indicates that 62% of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and that data is as of January of 2024. And so there's also data that says that if you track your spending and you have a budget, it can enhance your financial stability, which we all need, especially like right now, like while everything is kind of like, again, gestures vaguely, there's a lot happening. If you want to work toward getting out of that paycheck to paycheck cycle, having a budget is a great way to do that. I want to say this. Of course, we want to make more money. Okay. Making more money is probably the better solution. But if you have the budget and you budget for the year, it gives you a really good picture of what you actually need. Like, what do I actually need to hit this goal, to save for this vacation, to make ends meet, to, what is it that I actually need? And it shows you where you can potentially cut spending. Maybe you don't get your nails done every 2 weeks. Maybe you go once a month. Where are the places that you can maybe snip some stuff out of your budget, and how much you can actually save? You can start to see that when you've done the budget for the year. You can sit back and go, oh. And then you'll also uncover things like there are some months where instead of 2 paychecks, you get 3. And if you plan right, if you're budgeting right, that kind of ends up being like a free check, a free-ish check, right? And you can use that to do whatever you want to do with it. And so knowing the data about where your money's going, when it's coming in, can let you create a strategy and cut down on money anxiety. It doesn't have to be anxiety inducing. It can cut down on the anxiety because now you have the information you need to plan, and you can start to employ support and all of those things so that you can actually show up the way that you want to. All right. So that's the second one, touches the wealth pillar. Let's think about the ways that we can maybe just build a budget out for the year. I build my budget out for the year. Do I adhere to it all the time? No, But building it out for the year also teaches me where I get a little playroom. Okay, so there's that. The third one is set some intentional goals around being environmentally responsible. I'm going to say that again. Set some intentional goals around being environmentally responsible. Okay. This one, believe it or not, touches the relationship pillar. We think relationships is, only when we're engaging with other people. But the relationships that we have with our communities and with the earth, like those matter as well. And so thinking about the ways that we can be responsible for our environment is critically important. And it's one of the things that I really try to find ways to work into my life in a very natural way. So one of the environmentally responsible things that I practice is I don't use paper plates and plastic cups or forks in my house. I use real plates. I use real flatware. I use glasses. I'm intentional about that because not only does it feel really nice to eat off a proper plate, shout out to my goddad who absolutely will not eat out of a to-go box ever, but it's just also much better for the environment. If you are a person that's using paper plates all the time, you're throwing away a ton of them, and you are clogging landfills. If you are using plastic forks, again, you are throwing away, they're disposable. You're clogging landfills and you're eating off of plastic. And now we have the whole microplastics thing happening where we're like turning into plastic people. And it's like, I don't even want to eat off that fork. Right. So now if you can, if you have it, get some real plates. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You can get some decent flatware at even the dollar store and, eat and drink off of things that are real. And it actually feels nice because what happens is we will have plates and cups and all that stuff, and we won't take that stuff out unless we're like having company. And it's like, well, treat you good. Human well, treat you good. Enjoy your plates and enjoy your cups. Enjoy the crystal champagne glasses you got for your anniversary, whatever. Enjoy them. Okay, because it feels good, but also you're being better for the environment. Now, some of you are like, I don't want to wash no dishes. I'm not a dish fan either. I don't enjoy washing dishes, but just as a little point of note, because I know some of y'all are just old school and are like, dishwashers don't really work. First of all, dishwashers work well. You need the right cleaning products. I don't have a sponsored, ad from those folks, so I won't tell you who that is, but if you message me, I'll tell you who to use. But in 2025, over 60% of American households have a dishwasher, but a lot of folks aren't necessarily using them. But it uses less water than if you wash by hand. Okay, so put the dishes in the dishwasher. If you must or insist on hand washing, or, sometimes you cook and it's like stuff that can't go in the dishwasher, right? Like you probably don't want to put your cast iron in the dishwasher. Don't do that. But you can put on your favorite podcast, maybe the Humaning Well podcast, and listen so that it feels like less of a chore because you get to listen to something while you're also doing it. Again, good for the mind-body connection, right? Treating yourself well, right? So you get that nice, good, healthy experience. But in addition to that, you're tapping the relationship pillar because you are thinking about the relationship that you have with the earth. Okay, look. Things you're going to do anyway. We're just going to do them a little different. So that leads me to number 4, read a book, any book, pick a book. It doesn't have to be nonfiction. It can be whatever you want to read. It can be fantasy, whatever, but pick up a book, actual words on a real physical book. If you have an e-reader, I'll allow it. I have one as well. Those of us who read a lot, getting books, it's at some point you run out of space for them. But ideally, you want to read an actual physical book when you are trying to look for ways to human well, because in addition to helping us grow, it's really great for our brains. It helps that mind-body connection. And so there is a difference when you are looking at words on a screen, even if it's an e-reader, than when you are reading an actual book. So growth, right? Because reading helps us grow. Mind-body connection, which also means it's good for our health. Okay. And here's the thing. The data says that reading a real book lights up parts of your brain that audiobooks do not touch at all. So whatever the book is, fiction or not, it turns out that old school was right. Reading is fundamental and we should be doing it with real books. All right. So you want to find a real book and, spend 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 chapters, however you want to do it. It's really good for us to do that. My 5th recommendation, use your city services. So go to the park, go to the library, go to the local museums, do it without using your phone. All right. It is not an opportunity to capture content. You are doing something good for your health. All right. Health pillar. And you're going to get a walk in. You're going to walk around the park. You're going to walk around the library. You're going to walk through the museum. Okay. So you get an opportunity to engage your health. You're also strengthening your relationship with your community. And if you choose the library or the museum, you could also potentially be growing because you're learning. You're taking in new information. I mean, you can learn stuff at the park, but you know what I mean? Unless you're like studying trees or grass. But like if you go to the museum or you go to the library, 9 times out of 10, you're also going to get to tap that growth pillar. 5 things you can do. 5 things that don't cost a ton of money. 5 ways you can human well. 5 ways. Remember, the goal here isn't perfection. It is, I need to feel better. And I want to use the neuroscience. I want to use the data that we know that helps us to be better humans to hack me getting there. Okay. And this list, again, it's not intended to be your usual, take a walk, do some box breathing, use those tools. Those are incredibly important. But humaning well doesn't have to be repetitive. It doesn't have to be boring. You can find clever and creative ways to embed stuff into your life. Now, I have especially highlighted in this episode to try to look for screen-free options, like where you are not like on your phone or on an iPad or on an e-reader. And that's because there is a lot of data that shows how badly being on our screens constantly is actually affecting our lives. It's something that people are calling digital dementia. It was a term that was coined by a neuroscientist. If you can't tell, I read a lot of like neuroscience-y stuff. I love understanding what makes the brain work. It's just like, again, I talked about how, I use my body to carry my brain around. Yeah, guilty. So neuroscientist stuff is my stuff. And there's a neuroscientist, I cannot remember the name right now, but in 2012, he coined the term digital dementia. And what it refers to is like that experience where you're like, you walk into a room and you're like, what did I come in here for again? And you kind of like try to retrace your steps and like you try to pause and like pull it back, but it won't come. Or like forgetting things while you're in the middle of speaking, like you're talking and then you lose it and you're like, man, I forgot what I was going to say. Or having a hard time concentrating, or, challenges with really simple problem solving, like simple spelling or being able to recall words. All of that is, could be symptoms of a cognitive decline that has been associated with excessive use of digital devices. Like, cause it's just feeding you like dopamine, like constantly. Right. And so your body is just like more, right? And it loves it, but like you're not using the part of your brain and your body that needs to work, that like lights up other things when you normally would be doing that to even get half of the amount of dopamine that we're getting just by scrolling. Screens can also mess up your sleep. So my boyfriend has been telling me this forever. He studied this when he was younger and he's like, you're on your phone too much. You're on the phone in the bed. It's just like not ideal. And so in the last couple of months, I've been intentionally trying to like break that habit because he's like, you're addicted to your phone. I'm like, no, I'm not. But also I might be. So even though it annoys me when he's right, I have been honestly doing a lot better with my phone in my bedroom. I bought an alarm clock, like a good old school digital readout alarm clock, because I recognize that like, I have some of these symptoms where like my brain is forgetting things. And then I'm like, a woman of a certain age. So I'm also having some of the like hormonal shifts that, we have that can also affect how we process cognitively. And so I'm just like, let me hold on to the brain cells. Let me use them. Let me take care of them. And, honestly, the cognitive decline data, it's concerning enough that I have started to like intentionally try to put my phone in another room. Like, unless I'm like sitting at my desk right here and I'm working, my phone is in another room. I also only have like my meeting notifications in my phone on. I don't have all those like, here's an alarm for this, news story or not. All of that is off, right? I don't get notifications from social media, none of that stuff, because it's distracting. It steals my brain. And so I am learning, and I recommend that you also take a moment to learn how to just sit in your space and do analog things. Like I have a whole record player and a whole like set of shelves full of records. I would like to do that. Let me play some records and build some Legos together. No TV, nothing digital. Let's just enjoy, right? In the spirit of us all making the choice to human better, I hope that this list is helpful for you. Hopefully you got something that you maybe hadn't thought about before, that you can put in your habit of trying to human better when you hit that wall where you're like, I am not humaning well at all today. What can I do? Now you've got some things in your pocket that you can maybe take advantage of. And I'm also going to start asking you at the end of these episodes, how are you humaning well today? Okay. And you can find me on social and share your answer. I'm at Bam Cabral almost everywhere except LinkedIn. I am at Amber Cabral. So just type my name in and you should be able to find me. But I'd love to hear what you are doing to human well. And maybe you can give me some new ideas. I'm on the journey too, always. I'm teaching you, but I am also still on the journey because humaning is a lifelong process. So in the meantime, while you are trying to figure out how to manage your humaning, please, 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 we are at the end of this episode. Stop right now and go rate this podcast. If you loved it, whatever you're listening to it on, go and rate the episode. It so helps. It means so much. And share it with somebody. So share it on your social media. Share it with someone who you think needs to human better. Pass it along. All those things make a big difference to how well a podcast performs. And I really want this one to win so I can keep giving y'all some good stuff. All right. So thanks for listening and I'll see you next week.